Welcome to NPJR, where we explore the great outdoors one national park at a time. I'm Justin.
And I'm Robin. We encourage you to pause the podcast at any time and discuss some of our talking points or try answering our trail trivias. Today, we're heading to Oregon to learn all about Crater Lake National Park. This place has deep water and sits atop a sleeping volcano.
Crater Lake National Park, located in southern Oregon, is one of the most remarkable natural wonders in the U.S. It is home to the deepest lake in the country, formed by a violent volcanic eruption thousands of years ago. The park is not only a geological marvel, but also a place of rich ecological diversity and cultural significance. Crater Lake averages 42 feet of snow per year. That's over 500 inches. Trail trivia. What place in the U.S. averages the most snowfall per year? Paradise Ranger Station in Mount Rainier National Park in Washington. This station averages about 56 feet of snow per year. Back-to-back trail trivia. What place averages the most snowfall per year on Earth? The Andes Mountains in southern Chile, with some areas receiving over 166 feet of snow annually, making it the snowiest location on Earth. 166 feet is almost 2,000 inches. Back to Crater Lake. Crater Lake receives so much precipitation that 34 billion gallons of water are added to the lake each year. According to travelmedford.org, where does the water in the lake go? No one knows. Because Crater Lake has no outlets leading to other water sources, the lake's changing water level poses a puzzling scientific quandary. Precipitation rates are more than twice the evaporation rates, so a lot of water is seemingly unaccounted for.
Scientists have discovered that a steady flow is what keeps the water in balance. Water goes out of the caldera's walls at a rate of about 2 million gallons of water every hour. Amazing! But scientists are still trying to determine where that water goes because there are no nearby water sources that hold the same amount of water as the lake does.
That is fascinating and puzzling at the same time. One of Crater Lake's most well-known features is an ancient hemlock tree stump that has mystified visitors and scientists for more than a century, as it floats perfectly upright and unanchored. The head and torso portion of what people call the Old Man floats about 4 feet above the surface, while the lower part drops 30 feet into the water.
Crater Lake was formed approximately 7,700 years ago when Mount Mazama, a towering stratovolcano estimated to have been over 12,000 feet tall, erupted in a massive explosion. The eruption ejected vast amounts of ash and pumice 30 miles into the air, leading to the collapse of the mountain into itself. This created a massive caldera and lowered the elevation to what it is now, just below 9,000 feet at the highest point in the park.
Scientists believe that the initial boom would have been so loud that it could have been heard as far away as the area that is now Nebraska. Over time, this caldera filled with water from rain and snowfall, forming what we now know as Crater Lake. With a depth of about 1,943 feet, Crater Lake is the deepest lake in the United States, the second deepest in the Western Hemisphere, and the 9th deepest lake in the world. Trail trivia. What is the deepest lake in the world?
Lake Baikal in Siberia, Russia, is the deepest lake in the world at 5,387 feet, which is 1,642 meters. Baikal is also the world's largest freshwater lake by volume. Back-to-back trail trivia. What is the deepest lake in North America? Great Slave Lake in Northwest Territories, Canada. A fascinating fact about Crater Lake, according to travelmedford.org, the depths were first explored in 1886 by a group from the U.S. Geological Survey. Their sounding device consisted of a lead pipe attached to piano wire. After lowering it into the water at 168 locations around the lake, they determined the deepest part was 1,996 feet. Amazingly, this was only 53 feet shy of the official depth measurement recorded with multi-beam side-scan sonar in 2000. Impressive! Crater Lake's clarity and striking blue color result from the absence of incoming streams, which prevents sediment and mineral deposits from clouding the water.
That's right. Crater Lake has the cleanest water in the world. Its water is so pure because it is fed only by rain and snow, and it has no inlets or tributaries, and is mostly protected from human pollutants through the form of strict boating and use regulations. The geological features of the Crater Lake area include the remnants of volcanic activity, such as Wizard Island, a cinder cone volcano protruding from the lake that emerged after the caldera collapse. Other notable formations include the Phantom Ship, a rock formation resembling a small sailing vessel. The Phantom Ship is composed of weathered andesite pinnacles about 400,000 years old. The formation is probably the remains of a filled fissure which was exposed with the caldera collapse of Mount Mazama. Another is the Pumice Desert, an area covered in volcanic ash. The Crater Lake region remains geologically active with ongoing research into the possibility of future volcanic activity. These volcanoes may be asleep, but they are not extinct.
A few sentences from my travel journal. The west and south entrances are open in winter. You can drive up to the Rim Village area, but not further than that, which is what we did. We rented snowshoes at a shop in Chiloquin for $22 a day. The lake is stunning. It was a perfect 70-degree sunny day. The water was so still and the reflection perfectly clear. We snowshoed part of the Garfield Peak Trail, but it got pretty steep, so we turned around. Great views at our turnaround point. Beautiful lake views on one side and mountains on the other.
It's hard to describe how beautiful this area is. At the turnaround point, we took some great pictures, had a snack, and enjoyed the view and amazing weather. Being the beginning of April at the time of our visit, the weather could have gone either way. It could be blizzard conditions that time of year, but we were so lucky to have quite the opposite. Snowshoeing in tank tops. Such a special and unique experience. From the Garfield Peak Trail, Wizard Island is such a cool feature of the lake, rising 755 feet above the lake's surface, totaling 315 acres. A small fraction, just over 2%, of the 13,180 surface acres of Crater Lake. In last week's episode, we explored Lava Beds National Monument, located not far from Crater Lake. The NPS Travel Ideas website features a recommended road trip called the Circle of Discovery, showcasing an incredible route through the region. I'll include the link in the show notes. We followed a similar path, visiting 5 of the 7 national park units, and had an unforgettable experience. This route is a fantastic way to explore multiple national park sites in a short amount of time.
Visitors to Crater Lake can enjoy numerous activities including hiking, camping, sightseeing, and snowshoeing like we did. The Rim Drive is a 33-mile scenic route that offers breathtaking views of the lake and its surroundings. Unfortunately, in early April, this road was not open yet, so if you want to be able to do this drive, be sure to check the NPS website for road condition updates and openings before your visit. Popular hiking trails include Garfield Peak Trail, Watchman Peak Trail, and Cleetwood Cove Trail, the only route that provides access to the lake's shoreline. During the summer months, boat tours operate on the lake, allowing visitors to explore Wizard Island and learn more about the lake's history. Once you're on the island, hike the Wizard Island Summit Trail. This moderate hike is approximately 1 hour to the top of the island, with a path leading to the 90-foot deep crater at the summit. The trail is 2.2 miles round trip. Another popular trail is the Mount Scott Trail. At 8,934 feet, Mount Scott is the highest point in Crater Lake National Park. The trailhead is located on East Rim Drive. The trail offers breathtaking panoramic views of the lake and surrounding wilderness. While one of the park's more challenging hikes, it presents no technical obstacles. All Trails says it is 4.3 miles out and back with a steady 1,272-foot elevation gain. I am really looking forward to going back in the future during the summer months to hike this trail and complete the scenic rim drive.
Fishing is permitted at Crater Lake, and because the lake was naturally fishless, stocked populations of kokanee salmon and rainbow trout provide angling opportunities. No fishing license is required, and there are no limits on catch sizes, as the park encourages fishing to control the non-native fish populations. Only artificial lures and flies are allowed, as the introduction of bait could introduce invasive species or disrupt the pristine environment. No live bait allowed. Winter activities include snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, and ranger-led snow tours. The park's high elevation and heavy snowfall creates a winter wonderland for visitors. Trail trivia. What is the world record for snowfall in one winter at a ski area? The world record snowfall in one winter was 95 feet at Mount Baker Ski Area in Washington during the 1998 and 1999 season.
To preserve the purity of Crater Lake's waters, boating is highly restricted. Private boats, kayaks, and other personal watercraft are prohibited to prevent contamination. The only authorized boats on the lake are those used for official tours and research. Swimming is permitted in designated areas, but the lake's frigid temperatures make prolonged swimming challenging. The temperature range is 38 degrees to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, with a short period during the summer months at the higher end of this range. The surface level of the lake warms, while the water below 300 feet stays a steady 38 degrees Fahrenheit all year. Crater Lake rarely freezes in the winter, and the last time it did was in 1949. Most people are only able to stay in the water for a few minutes. Exercise caution when entering the water. There's no lifeguards on duty. You enter the water at your own risk. Hypothermia can set in within only 30 to 60 minutes in the water that is 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. According to the NPS, Crater Lake supports over 700 species of native plants with a diverse animal population including mammals, birds, amphibians, reptiles, and fish, totaling over 70 species of mammals alone. While specific fungal species numbers aren't readily available, the focus is primarily on the extensive plant and animal life found within the park. Understanding flora and fauna and their roles in ecosystems can help us care for them. We reference flora and fauna in most episodes, so let's define these terms.
Flora means plants, and fauna means animals. The word flora comes from a Latin word meaning goddess of the flower. In the early 2000s, a movement to include funga was started. The National Geographic Society has added funga to its definition of wildlife. The International Union for Conservation of Nature called for the recognition of fungi as one of the 3 kingdoms of life in 2021. Flora, fauna, and funga is a term used to describe the variety of life on Earth, similar to flora and fauna. It's used to promote the inclusion of fungi in conservation efforts. Visit the website faunaflorafunga.org to learn more. I'll include the link in the show notes. Together, the fauna, flora, and funga make up the biodiversity of an ecosystem. Crater Lake is home to a diverse range of flora, fauna, and fungi.
First, let's explore some of the flora or plants of Crater Lake. The flora is adapted to the varying elevations and volcanic soil conditions. Coniferous forests dominate the landscape with species such as ponderosa pine, lodgepole pine, mountain hemlock, multiple species of fir, and whitebark pine all thriving in different zones. Wildflowers, including lupines, beargrass, and Indian paintbrush, add seasonal bursts of color to the meadows and hillsides.
When you are in the forest, it can be difficult to tell different trees apart from one another. In one of the videos on the Junior Ranger section of the NPS website, they discuss how to identify pine trees from fir trees. It is actually very simple once you know. Both pine trees and fir trees have special leaves called needles. Needles perform the same function as broadleaves, which is to capture sunlight, absorb carbon dioxide, and release oxygen. How to identify fir trees from pine trees. The needles growing from the branches of pine trees grow in clusters. The needles growing from branches of fir trees grow individually directly from the branch, not in clusters. Now that we know how to identify fir trees from pine trees, let's learn about a special type of pine tree found at Crater Lake. Whitebark pines are a keystone species in Crater Lake National Park, thriving in the harsh, high-elevation environments surrounding the lake. Adapted to cold, wind-swept ridges and nutrient-poor volcanic soils, these resilient trees stabilize soil, reduce erosion, and create habitats for other species.
Whitebark pines typically grow 40 to 60 feet tall and rarely can reach 90 feet tall and up to 5 feet in diameter. Their protein-rich seeds provide a vital food source for wildlife, particularly bears, ground squirrels, and Clark's nutcracker, which aids in their reproduction by storing seeds underground, some of which sprout into new trees. A whitebark pine can live for up to 1,000 years and is considered a long-lived tree. Despite their ecological importance, whitebark pines face significant threats from climate change, mountain pine beetles, and white pine blister rust, a non-native fungal disease that has devastated populations. Rising temperatures have expanded beetle activity, further endangering these trees. In response, Crater Lake National Park is engaged in conservation efforts, identifying disease-resistant trees, collecting seeds, and restoring affected areas. Protecting whitebark pines is crucial to preserving the park's landscape, biodiversity, and ecological balance.
White pine blister rust is a non-native invasive species of fungus posing a serious and lethal threat to white pine forests. Introduced from Europe in the early 20th century, this invasive pathogen has spread rapidly, causing high mortality among susceptible pines. The disease disrupts the tree's vascular systems, leading to branch dieback, reduced growth, and eventual death.
White pine blister rust has an interesting and complex life cycle. This fungus requires two hosts, white pines and plants from the ribus genus, such as currants and gooseberries. The fungus begins on ribus plants, producing spores that spread to white pines via wind and moisture. Once inside a pine, it enters through needle stomata, growing internally and forming cankers on branches and trunks. These cankers eventually girdle the tree, cutting off nutrient flow and causing death.
Thriving in cool, moist environments, the disease is particularly prevalent in high-altitude forests like Crater Lake. Its ability to spread through airborne spores allows it to travel great distances, posing an ongoing threat to white pine populations across North America. The decline of white pines due to blister rust has wide-ranging consequences. Ecologically, these trees provide critical habitat and food for various species.
Economically, white pines have historically been prized for their straight, strong wood used in construction, furniture, and paper production. The spread of blister rust has significantly reduced commercial white pine populations, prompting efforts to breed resistant varieties and restore forests.
Control strategies for white pine blister rust include removing ribous plants near vulnerable pine stands, breeding rust-resistant tree varieties, and conducting genetic research. While early eradication efforts targeted ribous plants, their continued presence has limited success in stopping the fungus's spread. Modern efforts focus on breeding rust-resistant white pines to enhance long-term forest resilience.
Chemical treatments like fungicides have been explored but remain costly and environmentally concerning. Techniques such as pruning infected branches and promoting diverse forest compositions help mitigate outbreaks. Researchers are also investigating biological control methods, including fungal competitors and microbial treatments.
Crater Lake is also home to a diverse range of animal life, or fauna. The word fauna comes from the name of a Roman goddess. Mammals such as black bears, bobcats, mountain lions, elk, and mule deer roam the forests. Smaller creatures like the American pika, golden-mantled ground squirrel, and various species of chipmunks are common sightings. Birdwatchers can enjoy spotting bald eagles, peregrine falcons, Clark's nutcrackers, and Steller's jays. Amphibians like the rough-skinned newt and the Mazama newt inhabit the park's wetlands, streams, and the lake.
Clark's nutcracker is a vital bird species in Crater Lake, playing a crucial role in the survival of whitebark pines. This intelligent corvid extracts seeds from whitebark pine cones and caches them in various locations, aiding in the tree's regeneration. In the Junior Ranger Handbook, there is an activity that walks through a Clark's nutcracker's daily activities. We learn a really interesting and mind-blowing fact about these amazing birds. Trail trivia. How many whitebark pine seeds can a Clark's nutcracker bury each year? 35,000. These birds bury seeds in groups of 3 to 7 seeds. That's somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 holes.
Wow. With an exceptional memory, the nutcracker recalls thousands of these holes in which they bury the seeds. Scientists believe the birds use triangulation to remember where they bury the seeds. Once they bury the seeds, they stop and look around, using trees, rocks, and other features to remember the location, and they have been observed retrieving seeds from locations as much as 9 months later. Some seeds remain buried as they are not able to remember every caching location. As a result, many of these seeds grow into new trees. This symbiotic relationship is essential for sustaining high-elevation forests where whitebark pines struggle to reproduce on their own. This bird was first observed by European settlers and explorers during Lewis and Clark's expedition, one of 3 new birds identified and documented on their journey. While scientists observed the Clark's nutcracker, they discovered that this bird has a pouch in its throat to hold seeds. The nutcracker can gather 32 seeds per minute from the whitebark pine cones and on average holds between 30 and 80 seeds in the throat pouch. Trail trivia. What was the highest number of seeds a Clark's nutcracker has been observed carrying in its throat pouch at one time?
150 seeds. Despite their adaptability, Clark's nutcrackers face challenges due to the decline of whitebark pines, which are threatened by white pine blister rust, climate change, and mountain pine beetles. As their primary food source diminishes, the nutcracker population may also decline. Conservation efforts at Crater Lake focus on protecting both the trees and the birds, ensuring this critical ecological relationship endures. By restoring whitebark pine populations, the park supports not only these iconic trees, but also the nutcrackers and the broader mountain ecosystem.
Golden-mantled ground squirrels. Trail trivia. How many ground squirrel species are there? There are 62 identified species of ground squirrels on Earth. The golden-mantled ground squirrel, probably the most seen animal in the park, is a charismatic species of ground squirrel found throughout Crater Lake and the Rocky Mountain, Sierra Nevada, and Cascade Mountain regions of the U.S. and Canada. Often mistaken for a chipmunk due to its striped back, this small rodent is distinguished by the lack of facial stripes. It thrives in a variety of habitats, including forests, rocky slopes, and meadows, where it forages on seeds, nuts, berries, and insects. As an important part of the park's ecosystem, the golden-mantled ground squirrel helps with seed dispersal and serves as prey for predators like hawks, foxes, and weasels.
During the summer, these squirrels are highly active, storing food in preparation for winter hibernation. Unlike true hibernators, they periodically wake to feed on stored food before returning to torpor. Torpor is a state of physical or mental inactivity. Visitors to Crater Lake frequently encounter these bold squirrels near trails and picnic areas where they sometimes beg for food. Please do not feed wildlife, as it disrupts their natural foraging behavior and can be harmful to their health. Despite their small size, golden-mantled ground squirrels play a significant role in maintaining the ecological balance of Crater Lake National Park.
In our Gates of the Arctic episodes, we learned about some large ground squirrels. The largest member of the squirrel family being the marmot, and the largest ground squirrel in North America being the Arctic ground squirrel. The golden-mantled ground squirrel is considered a medium-sized squirrel, usually between 1/2 and 3/4 of a pound, and reaching 9 to 12 inches long. Trail trivia. What is the smallest squirrel species on Earth? The African pygmy squirrel is the world's smallest squirrel species, including ground squirrels. Coming in at about 5 inches long, including its tail, they only weigh about 1/2 an ounce. One final animal species highlight for this episode: a special creature that is endemic to Crater Lake. Endemic means native, restricted to, or found exclusively in a certain place.
The Mazama newt, also known as the Crater Lake newt, is a unique subspecies of the Oregon rough-skinned newt. Mazama newts can range in size from about 4 to 8 inches long and are found only in Crater Lake. This amphibian has adapted to the lake's cold, nutrient-poor waters, making it one of the few vertebrate species that thrive in this isolated ecosystem. The Mazama newt is recognizable by its dark brown or blackish back and bright orange underside, a warning coloration indicating the presence of toxic skin secretions that deter predators. Despite this defense, invasive species like crayfish, introduced to the lake in the early 20th century, have become a major threat by preying on newt larvae and competing for resources.
The newts play an essential role in Crater Lake's food web, feeding on small invertebrates like insects and aquatic larvae, while serving as prey for native birds. However, their population has declined due to the expansion of the invasive crayfish, which has spread across much of the lake and now outcompete the newt in many areas. Conservationists are closely monitoring the impact of crayfish on Mazama newts, as their survival is crucial for maintaining Crater Lake's delicate aquatic ecosystem. Preserving this unique amphibian is vital to protecting the natural biodiversity of one of the world's clearest and most pristine lakes.
It isn't just invasive animal species that pose a threat to these natural areas. One of the greatest threats to national parks and other natural areas is the spread of non-native plant and fungal species, commonly known as invasives or exotics, like the white pine blister rust. These plants and fungi have taken over 1.4 million acres of National Park Service lands and waters. At Crater Lake National Park, The Invasive Vegetation Management Program works to prevent new invasions and control existing infestations, playing a crucial role in preserving the park's native plant communities.
The primary goal of the Invasive Vegetation Management Program is to prevent the introduction of non-native species, ensuring the park's diverse native flora remains intact. While invasive plants pose a significant threat, some areas of Crater Lake National Park remain untouched by non-native species. The park's high elevation and heavy snowfall help limit disturbances, both human and natural, that could introduce invasive plants and cause long-term ecological harm. A few invasives. Dyer's woad. It was first cultivated for its dye. It became invasive when introduced to western states as a contaminant in alfalfa seed. Canada thistle. Accidentally arrived through farm seed shipments as early as 1600. It crowds out native species, reducing the yield of native plants. Spotted knapweed. This was accidentally introduced into North America in contaminated alfalfa and clover seed in the late 1800s. St. John's wort. This plant was introduced as an ornamental and as a medicinal herb. It is toxic to cattle. Bull thistle. Bull thistle can form dense thickets, displacing native vegetation. Introduced in the late 1800s, it is now found in all 50 states.
Indigenous peoples and people of the park. Long before European explorers set foot in the region, the Klamath tribes, consisting of the Klamath, Modoc, and Yehuskin peoples, lived in and around the Crater Lake area. Crater Lake, known to them as Giwas, was a sacred site central to their spiritual beliefs and oral traditions. The Klamath people viewed the lake as a place of power and significance, where legends spoke of battles between spirits that shaped the landscape.
The Klamath tribe was the largest tribe in the Crater Lake area, primarily inhabiting areas around the Upper Klamath Lake, the Klamath River, and the Southern Cascade Mountain region. Traditionally, the Klamath people lived a semi-nomadic lifestyle, relying on fishing, hunting, and gathering for sustenance. Their society was organized into bands, each led by elders and chiefs who made decisions through consensus. Oral traditions and legends played a significant role in their cultural identity, including stories about Crater Lake, which they considered a sacred site of spiritual power and transformation.
With the arrival of European American settlers in the mid-19th century, the Klamath people faced significant challenges, including loss of land and forced assimilation. In 1864, the U.S. government forced the Klamath, Modoc, and Yehuskin people onto the Klamath Reservation, significantly reducing their traditional lands from 23 million acres to just over 1 million acres. In 1954, the federal government terminated the Klamath tribe's official recognition, stripping them of their land and resources. They fought for their rights for decades and regained federal recognition in 1986, more than 30 years later.
Although the tribe's federal recognition was reinstated in 1986, they had already lost the 1.1 million acres originally granted to them in the 1864 treaty. Like the experience of most indigenous peoples in the U.S., their ancestral lands were drastically diminished. In this case, from 23 million acres down to 308 acres in 2025. Today, the Klamath tribe actively works to preserve its cultural heritage, reclaim ancestral lands, and advocate for environmental conservation, particularly in protecting the region's water resources and fish populations. Despite historical hardships, the Klamath people continue to honor their traditions while pursuing economic and political independence. European American exploration of Crater Lake began in the mid-19th century, with gold prospectors and settlers venturing into Klamath lands. The gold rush contributed to settlement in the area around Crater Lake in 1851. Mule packers James Cluggage and James Poole discovered gold in Rich Gulch, 85 miles west of Crater Lake. Within 6 months, nearly 3,000 miners moved to Jacksonville, a newly formed town. In 1853, John Wesley Hillman and a group of prospectors from Jacksonville were the first non-indigenous people to record viewing Crater Lake.
Crater Lake was officially designated as a national park on May 22, 1902, making it the 5th national park in the U.S. This was largely due to the efforts of William Gladstone Steele. According to travelmedford.org, in 1870, William Gladstone Steele, a young child from Kansas, read about Crater Lake in the newspaper.
Fascinated by this amazing natural wonder, he vowed to visit the lake one day. Steele first visited Crater Lake in 1885, just 15 years after reading the original story, traveling by railroad and stagecoach before walking another 20 miles to finally view the incredible wonder. After fulfilling his dream, he made it his mission to make Crater Lake a national park, protecting and preserving its natural resources for generations to come. As a journalist, he wrote about the lake's natural wonders and soon began leading nature hikes so that important figures would be able to see why the wonderful lake should be protected.
Steele's lobbying led to the designation of Crater Lake National Park as the 5th U.S. national park in 1902, and he became known as the father of Crater Lake and a one-man chamber of commerce. Steele's determination and commitment to protecting Crater Lake led to increased awareness of its ecological and geological importance, ensuring it would remain a national treasure for future generations.
Caldera safety. There are specific access points at Crater Lake. The NPS website says, when Mount Mazama erupted, it left a mile-deep hole, technically called a caldera, inside the volcano, which is now half filled with water. Areas within the Crater Lake caldera between the caldera rim edge and Crater Lake are closed to public entry. The exception to this is the Cleetwood Cove Trail and areas on the shoreline extending 300 feet on either side of the Cleetwood Dock facility. Why is it illegal to enter the caldera?
It is illegal to enter the caldera because the inner walls of the caldera, as well as some areas near the caldera rim, consist of extremely steep, unstable rocks and soils. As part of the Crater Lake viewshed, these natural features form part of a visual icon that symbolizes the park. Visitor use of the inner caldera walls would damage the highly sensitive geological resources, as well as damage and or disturb plants and animals that live in this highly unique area. Hiking in the caldera would also expose visitors to the potential for serious accidents involving falls.
We are looking forward to going back when the road is fully open so we can enjoy the scenic drive. The rim drive at Crater Lake typically opens around mid-June depending on snowmelt, with the full loop of the rim drive usually accessible from late June to mid-October. However, exact dates can vary depending on weather conditions and snow levels, so it's best to check current conditions before visiting.
There are some really cool pictures on the NPS website of the bottom of the lake. Scientists and biologists spent 20 days at Crater Lake during the summer of 1987 studying the chemistry, biology, hydrology, and geology of the bottom of the lake. The research group used various instruments, including a deep sea rover. A helicopter was used to lower the rover into the lake, as well as to extract it from the area. You should definitely visit the NPS website to view these photos.
The Junior Ranger section of the NPS website has half a dozen videos. This is a fun and educational way to virtually explore the park and learn directly from Crater Lake park rangers. In one video, a ranger shows a great visual of how Mount Mazama became Crater Lake using a balloon and sand, an activity that would be easy to replicate at home for a hands-on experiment. In another video, a ranger explains why storytelling was so important to indigenous people for thousands of years, and then tells the original story the Klamath people had passed down since their ancestors witnessed the eruption firsthand over 7,000 years ago. There are a couple videos about trees and a couple highlighting animals of the park. I wish all the park websites had videos like this. There is also a link to the Crater Lake Junior Ranger Handbook, which has so many activities: a word search, a scavenger hunt bingo, a winter word scramble, designing your own national park, and so many others. The handbook says to complete 7 of the 11 pages to receive your Junior Ranger badge. I will include the link in our show notes. Now, a Junior Ranger activity.
Park rangers gather information by carefully observing the world around them. After you finish this episode, go outside, find a quiet place to sit, and spend 5 minutes observing your surroundings. Look around. List a few things you can see from this spot. Listen. Identify 2 sounds that you hear. What kinds of animals might be living nearby? Take a deep breath. What does the air smell like?
Have fun completing this Junior Ranger activity and enjoy your time outdoors. To conclude today's episode, Crater Lake National Park stands as a testament to the power of natural forces, cultural history, and conservation efforts. Its stunning geological features, rich biodiversity, and recreational opportunities make it a unique and treasured destination. From the sacred history of the Klamath tribes to the awe-inspiring depths and clarity of the lake, Crater Lake continues to captivate visitors and researchers alike. Whether exploring its scenic trails, marveling at its deep blue waters, or learning about its volcanic origins, Crater Lake remains one of America's most fascinating natural wonders.
If you haven't visited Crater Lake yet, we hope this inspired you to add it to your bucket list. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, share, and follow us for more outdoor adventures. And to all you Junior Rangers out there, good luck on earning your badge. And hey, if you've earned a Junior Ranger badge recently, send us a picture. We'd love to see it.
And if you want, feel free to share your latest story from your time in a national park unit. Who knows? Maybe we will mention it in one of our upcoming episodes. Be sure to include in the email that you grant us permission to share your story. I will include our email address, npjrpodcast@gmail.com, in our show notes. And feel free to follow us on our adventures on Instagram, @npjrpodcast. Until next time, happy trails. And remember, the earth is ours to explore and protect. So let's get out there and do it.
Explore.
Learn.
And protect.